Cool, we're on. First ever episode on the new mics. So, welcome, Cass.
Thank you for having me. I feel special.
So, I want to start off with and give a quick little rundown of yourself. You want to tell people your name, a little bit of your background. Obviously, we know that you're a sporting superstar, but for the listeners.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm Cassidy McLean. I'm a basketballer and I've played basketball since I was really young. I think I was 4 years old when I played my first game, and now I'm 20 years old and currently injured, but trying to make it back onto the professional scene for basketball.
Yeah, that's currently injured is probably not the exact way to describe it. You're on the comeback.
Yeah, not too far away. Hopefully a few more weeks and then, back on the court playing games.
Yeah, that's super exciting for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. But let's touch on a little bit of what got you to the point of where you're playing professional basketball. I remember seeing, actually we met through Jacko, your brother, and him talking about that you were really, really good at basketball, and the next thing I remember seeing it was the front page of the Herald. It was Cass signs with Bendigo at that point.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, she's actually really good. Everyone says that it's oh yeah, my brother's really good at this, or my sister's really good at this, and then it's oh no, you're legit really, really good at the sport. So what was it that, obviously you guys have a really, really strong basketball family.
Yeah.
But what was it that got you into it and then helped bring you up to where you are?
Yeah. Well, both my parents played basketball and at quite a high level. Mum played state level and Dad played in the National League here. So I was kind of born with it in my DNA, I guess you could say. And, from as young as I can remember, we were at the basketball stadium watching my older siblings, watching, I think both my parents were retired when I was born, but Mum used to always tell the story when we were at the stadium. I was a couple of weeks old or just still a baby, and they would put me to sleep underneath the grandstand. So pretty much I spent a lot of my young life at the basketball stadium, and I don't regret it. I obviously love playing basketball and kind of just transitioned from watching my siblings play to playing where I am now, and that kind of started just at Newcastle and representing their rep teams here, and then I was fortunate enough to keep going on with it at state level and national level and international level.
Cool, awesome. And so going from there, tell us about when you first made that first big team, or whether it be when you first signed with Bendigo to go and play the WNBL, or whether it was one of the big rep teams. What was that feeling like when that came to you, or you found out about that you were taking that next step up?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was when I made the under-17s Australian team. It was kind of that thing where it was okay, you've done all this work, you finally deserve, the spot here. You've been playing since you were 4 years old, and it's kind of all that hard work has finally paid off to be selected. And I remember when I was sitting there and they asked me, it was just me and the coaches in this room, and they asked me how I think I went at the training camp, because we were getting told on that day if we were selected or not. And I just remember that saying I think I did good, and I remember this because it's so significant to me, and they just said back, well, we think you did good too. And I was fortunate enough to get selected, and I remember ringing my family back home, and they were all in the car, so I was on loudspeaker, and I was bawling my eyes out that they couldn't tell that if I was selected or I got told I wasn't in the team. So it was, and then finally I calmed down and they realised that I had made it, and now everyone's crying on the phone. And later that year we went to the World Championship, and we won that, so it definitely made it all worth it. And it's feelings that you can't really describe unless you've been fortunate enough to experience them. And it's definitely a high point in my career as well.
Awesome, that's super cool. And one of the things that really, really stood out is you said it was you were proud to be that all the work had come together.
Yeah.
Let's cover that doing the work piece, because that's one thing that I've noticed when you've been here in the gym, before you were injured, then after when you've come back and been putting in the work consistently, is that's not always something easy to do repeatedly over time. Like, and that's one of the things that I think is a big driver of why you've been so successful, is that you just constantly show up and do the work, no matter what that might be. Is that still hard for you, or is it something that comes easy for you to show up day in, day out and do it?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I used to probably show a lot more that I wasn't, the hard work, it was hard. And I used to be very, I can't believe I have to go to training again, or training's really hard. And now I'm like, and especially after having this injury where I've been out for so long, I'm like, yes, I get to go to training, I get to get better. Like, this is how I get back onto professional teams. But in the early stages of my career, I used to, if it was an early morning training, I'd be like, oh, I've got to get up again. Oh, I can't believe I have to go to training. Like, it's so hard. And now when you look back on it, when people say, oh yeah, your blood, sweat and tears went into it, it's like, yes, it definitely did, blood, sweat and tears. And that was from, we started playing really competitive. I was maybe like 14 years old. So since like then, at 14 years old, when we were in high level squads, we were doing that sort of thing. We were kind of conditioning ourselves for where we are now, because it's 10 times harder now at 20 years old playing professional. It's, the standard is so much higher. So we kind of conditioned ourselves to get to this point where we can just be like, hey, it's, that not that actually that hard. It's, we enjoy it, and we enjoy the hard work and the challenges that come with it. And whether it be in the gym or on the court, it's, this is why we've trained. And this is, having those really good moments of when you win a championship or you get over a milestone, like all that hard work you put in is for memories like that. So now I like that I'm older and more experienced, I realise why we put that hard work in. Like, we don't just work hard because we're getting told to. We work hard because this is our career and this is what we want to do and this is how we're going to achieve those things. And it's at that point now where, I enjoy coming to the gym, not being able to walk out of the gym because my legs are so sore, but like that's the sort of stuff that now I kind of know, where when I was young, it just, I thought I was just getting, told to do it, but now it's, I do it because I want to.
Yeah, it really sounds like you've fallen in love with the process of being an athlete, not just the perks of being an athlete. Like everyone wants the perk of the winning the championship and the holding the trophy up at the end of the day, but really all that comes into doing the daily processes of being an athlete to allow you to have the benefit of having the potential to hold the trophy.
Yeah, everyone wants to hold that trophy up at the end of the day. They want to, get the merchandise from getting selected into a team. They want to, look good in those clothes. Where now I'm like, okay, I've kind of enjoy being able to see what my body can do in the gym, on the court. Like, I enjoy being able to test myself and, really see how far I can go. And, those little things where you get to hold the trophy up at the end of the day are just like the little perks that you get. And, it really puts the cherry on top. But realistically, it's like being able to see our bodies go through such, strenuous sort of things. It's really cool to see. And from where I was before, or like a year and a half ago before I started here, or even from when I was young, transitioning through basketball, it's really cool to see, how your body change, how your skill change, and I think they're the little milestones that you can really celebrate.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you 100% there. So I want to talk about when you first signed with Bendigo. Obviously that's a hard decision because Bendigo's a long way from Newcastle.
It is.
Like, what was the big things there? Like, were you in talks with other teams, or like what was it that drove you to go, okay, I'm going to go away from my whole family and commit everything to doing this to my best ability? And then like, what was that experience like as well? Like, obviously, were you homesick at times? Just talk us through that side of it, because I think that's something that you do see come up more and more regularly now in, like, whether it be whatever sport it is. People mention is like, hey, you know what, it is hard to be away from my family to do this, but my goals need this as well, so I'm willing to do the work.
Yeah, I'd played 2 years in Sydney in the same league, And I think I kind of just got to a point where I was like, I need to explore more options and see what's best for me. And the opportunity in Bendigo actually came around because a coach was at a tournament I was playing at, and he was watching a different player, and I had a really good tournament, and he said, I want that girl on my team. And so he rang me up and we got in talks, and before I knew it, I was moving down to Bendigo. And yeah, it was really hard. It was like pretty much the first time I had moved out of home. When I was in Sydney, I was kind of going back and forth between home, but this was the next big step. And I was nervous, I think, at the start because of not how I would perform on the basketball court, but realistically taking care of myself. You know, mum does the washing, she does the cooking, so I was kind of nervous in that aspect. And, you know, to see if, you know, I was struggling in those, how would I perform on the court? But I think once I got down there and kind of got the hang of it, I was like, okay, it's not too hard. You know, you get your clothes, you put them in the washing machine, you wash them, you put them away.
I think I still need help with that now. I've been doing it for a long time.
Well, I've been back home for a year and I'm like, oh gosh, how am I going to move out again and do this all over again? But, you know, I had really great support down in Bendigo that it made it a lot easier. I had a housemate who is kind of a veteran in basketball, so she had done and gone through everything I was going through. So she was a really good help, and my coach and the other girls were super understanding. And I think because I enjoyed the basketball so much that it made the living away from home a lot easier. I, you know, got a lot more minutes than what I had previously got in Sydney. The facilities and just the program they had down there was just great, and it was kind of the first time I had been like, oh wow, this is what professional basketball is. This is what athletes should get, like the benefits, the, you know, the facilities, the extra add-ons they get. This is what it's all about, and this is what I've worked, you know, 16 years to get to. And I think it was actually really funny when I left to go to Bendigo. I was like super excited. I didn't cry when I said goodbye to mum and dad. And then when I had to leave to come home, because obviously the season was finished and I was coming back to play up here for the winter, it was so hard to leave the people down in Bendigo. And I think it says a lot about the community down there and the people that were involved, that it was so hard to leave a place where I was only there for 6 months, where I've lived here my whole life. And I was like, nah, see ya.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it was so easy for me to be like, yes, I'll go back there. I want to go back and, you know, experience what I did the first time. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like there's a couple of key things there that were really important on that journey. Is like, one, having the people around you that, like, even though you wouldn't have known any of those girls beforehand, or you might have known somebody by name, and you'd seen them play before, but you created your own tribe down there very quickly and having the team. And I think that's one of the things that physical training, or like the sports, does really, really well, is that it unites people for like a greater purpose, of whether that be just winning a championship or whatever that might be for different tribes of people. But that's definitely something that helps. And then obviously, like, the community down there, and the way that I understand it is like, it's very, very tight knit. So it's like, everyone wants to see you do well, everyone wants to support you, instead of just like being like, okay, we've got this girl from Newcastle here, like, she'll just turn up training and she's going to do well on the court. But I think that's obviously a super important thing, and something that really would have helped you through that process, and enjoying and loving your time down there. So I wanted to touch on one thing that you covered in that whole piece of like the moving down there. What was the hardest part for you in that process? Yeah. And what was the most exciting part?
Yeah, okay. So when I first got down there, like, I was super excited, but I was also really nervous. As you said, I had no idea who anyone was. I'd played against some of the girls, but, you know, it's a lot different from playing against each other to now being on the same team. So I was super nervous to see how I would fit in with the dynamic, because a lot of them, because obviously Bendigo's down in Victoria, a lot of them had played in programs together, because a lot of them are Victorians, where I was just totally new. Not many people knew who I was. So that was probably super scary, but it was also really good, because now I have friendships that, you know, I didn't have before. And the girls are off playing in Perth or in up north in Queensland now, and we keep in touch. And so that's like something really cool, and that's what sport and, you know, basketball has really taught me, is that no matter where you are, you have those friends, the lifelong friendships that you've made. And the hardest part was when I got down there. I think, like, as I said, like, obviously taking care of yourself when you know, you're at home, it's a lot different. I really struggled to actually sleep down there, so I had to go see our team doctor about it, and you know, what's, like, why is it happening, like, and so I was turning up at training exhausted because I hadn't slept, you know, a wink of sleep, and my coach noticed because I obviously looked, you know, like a mess after 6 weeks of, you know, trying to fight this sleeping bug. And it got to the point where, you know, I went to the doctors, I got given some stuff, and within a week I was back to my normal routine, and we kind of just thought I was in a new environment, I was away from what I was comfortable and used to, and I think that's what it's kind of taught me, is that, you know, with sport you don't just stay in the one place where you're comfortable. You know, there's so many different aspects to playing professionally where you are put in situations where you're out of your comfort zone, you've got to adjust, and now that I've done it once, I'm hoping when I go back down there it doesn't happen again. But, you know, I had that support down there to get me through it, and it was good to come out the end and actually get some sleep.
Yeah, for sure. So what was, obviously, like, you're playing professional basketball, you're considered from the outside a professional athlete at that point. At what point did you consider yourself that?
I think what really comes really surreal with playing professionally is the community support you get. And there's a story down in Bendigo that really, you know, sticks with me in my heart, is we obviously have to do a lot of community engagement. It's a part of our contracts. And I was doing this program called Aussie Hoops down there, and you just teach kids from around 5 to 12 years old, like, skills and fundamentals of basketball. And I remember the first day we got there, one of the kids did a runner out the front door on me, and I didn't know what to do. Like, I was like, do I chase him? Do I leave, like, the big group of kids I have? Like, what's going on? And the mum ran past me, and she was like, oh, he's a runner, and chased after him. And, you know, he was really shy and stood in the back and didn't want to, you know, join in with the rest of the kids. And I had help from some of the other of my teammates as well in there, so I was like, oh, you girls can, you know, take this, I'll go help this little boy. And we actually created a little relationship, me and this 8-year-old boy, and it turns out that he had autism and also a social anxiety thing. So he didn't like being in big crowds, he didn't like noise, and his family really struggled to, you know, go do family activities. They couldn't go to the movies, they couldn't go to shows, they tried to get him involved in lots of different sport, and so basketball pretty much was their last resort to, you know, enjoying family time again out in public. And so over the 10 weeks that we worked this program, we kind of built this relationship on, like, trust, and by the last week he would run into the courts, you know, high five all the coaches, be like, hey Cass, and, you know, go shoot some hoops with some of the other little kids. And so that's something that's really special to me, where you make a difference not just in that little boy's life but also the family, because now they used to come to our games, on our home games on Saturday or Sundays, and he'd be front row, and you're like, who is that yelling out? Like, all you can hear is like this, go Bendigo, go Cassidy, and like cheering the other girls, and you're like, who is that? And it's the little boy standing front row, face painted in blue and yellow, and, you know, he's got signs. They even bought my jersey, one of my jerseys got auctioned off, and they bought that, and he wore it. And so it's like little things like that where you're like, wow, like, this is the impact that you make as a professional athlete. And it's kind of like opened my eyes up into how you can change people's lives just from the platform that you have. And like, you know, it's not just playing basketball, it's these other things as well. So that's kind of something that's really, you know, stuck with me.
I love that. That's a super cool story. And like, I guess the thing that stands out, like, from there is it's not necessarily that you were living as a professional basketballer, as that you were helping other people have an impact through basketball. That was the thing that I guess helped you identify as, like, that's when you'd made that status and that next level of elevation there. So that's really cool. Let's talk about one last thing from Bendigo before we go into the injury. So there's this scene that popped up on Facebook, and I remember it. And I had like, as soon as I saw it, I think I was here and had a break, and I like ran down. I was like, Nathan, have you seen this? And it's
I'm scared. To
you
see what it is.
on this breakaway runaway, and you trip over your own feet, and then just pop the layup up there and sink it without any trouble. Like, I can't sink a layup, a shot at all to save my life in a perfect scenario, yet you're like at full speed, falling flat on your face, and then land it, which I think is like a couple of things that come to mind from your character within that. Is like, one, it shows that you're an extremely athletic and skillful person, but two, it's this like always like go until the last opportunity and just keep on putting in the work and trying for it, which is super cool. Tell me about that moment, like, and I hope we can get the video. I'll try to find it before this comes out so people can see this, but yeah, it's incredible. Like, it's one of those things that's just, it stands out as like the separation between like elite level basketballers and punters like me.
Yeah, so I think in that situation, I think I got a steal, and I was on a fast break, and I had a defender on me, and everyone was like, oh, it was a foul, like she hit you, and I was like, she really didn't. I just fell over. And I remember going, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna get hit here, so I'll, really jump into my shot, but I went so hard into the legs that my knees just gave way. So I went to the ground, and I was like, oh, I'm either gonna turn it over, so I may as well shoot it. And so I hooked it over the back of my head, and I was just as shocked as you are that it went in. And I think the reaction, I think there's a photo there where my teammates on the bench were just shocked, and they were like, whoa. And I think it also shows that, there's that goofiness to basketball, and it's not always serious. Like, you gotta, get the perfect layup or get the perfect shot. And I think it says a lot about me as well. I'm not the most graceful basketballer. I'm all arms and legs, they're everywhere, and I think it just summed me up like, oh yeah, that's something Cassidy would do. And I think it just going in was pure luck. Like, I don't think there was much else to it.
Yeah, that still stands out to me. It's like, that's one of like the coolest moment in sports. Like, those are the things that go on like the blooper / highlight reels that are like one and the same. But let's go into the heartbreaking injury. I remember you'd come home, you'd started playing for the Hunters again in the state league. Was it the first or second game?
It was the first game in the first 5 minutes. So I'd just obviously come home from Bendigo, and it was a really great season. Like, it was probably my best season in the WNBL yet, and I was super excited to come home and play, because I was like, yes, this is like my league. Like, it's obviously not as serious as WNBL. We're in the off season. This is when I can, work on my game, get better. And yeah, first 5 minutes just went for a lap and felt the knee go, and pretty much straight away I kind of picked it. Yep, I've done my ACL.
Did you get that layup too?
No,
you missed that one?
No, I missed it. I threw the ball straight out of bounds, and they actually on the stat sheet gave me a turnover, which I was heartbroken about. Ruined my percentage, because so far I was 100% from the field, 1 from 1, but 1 turnover. But what really sucked was how, I was like, yes, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I'm shooting really well, like, this is going to be my season, and then it was just all over pretty much. And I haven't heard of, I wasn't really aware of ACLs, like, I've never really had any knee injuries, and so for that to happen, and then just to know straight away that I had done the ACL, I was just like, well, I just knew, and there wasn't much kind of changing it.
Yeah. The thing that I want to really, really touch on to start off with here is like that, when you go through an injury like that, you go from, as we just spoke about, like you're a professional athlete, to then you're basically very limited in what you can do. Like, there's not many people that straight after that injury would consider themselves still athletic.
Yeah.
What was that like in having that shift of where you were able to do so much? You had the kids down in Bendigo wearing your jerseys and stuff like that, to then it's like, okay, now I need to get surgery and I'm going to be out for a year.
Yeah. I think the hardest part was being immobile, like not being able to, get up on your legs easy, or, even for that first couple of weeks after surgery, not being able to lift your leg on its own. Like you had to use get your mum or dad to do it, or use your own hands to move your leg. And that was really the hardest part. And then going on to see like the rest of your teammates and the rest of the basketball community just carry on with playing. It's like, oh, it doesn't just stop for you. Like they don't all just wait for you to catch back up. So I kind of, there's the thoughts of, okay, I'll never play again, or I'll never be back at that level I was before, or, everyone's just going to be way too far ahead of me for me to be able to catch up and even compete at that level again. And, they're the first initial thoughts. And I think if you don't experience these things, like you're pretty lucky if you don't have those thoughts. And it wasn't until a couple of months after where I started to get back on my feet and back in the gym and seeing the benefits of doing the rehab that I was kind of like, okay, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We can get through this, and hopefully back to where I was before, or even better. And I'm 10 months down the track now from the injury, and I always tell people, they're like, oh, do you feel better? Or like, do you feel like you're back at to where you were before? And before the injury, I remember I think I weighed about 62 kilos. And then a month after the surgery, I was about 58, 59, so because I had lost all the muscle. And it wasn't until the other day that I stepped on the scales and was shocked that I weighed 68 kilos. So where you come from, and it's not obviously from eating.
If anyone's looking at the video right now, you can tell that Cass is not bulking herself.
Yeah, so I think I wasn't upset about being heavier. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the strongest I've ever been. Lifting more at the gym, being able to like take more contact and stuff like that. I was like, I couldn't imagine not being in the shape I'm in now. And I don't think if I didn't do my knee, I would be at this stage either. And I'm not back playing yet. I've probably got another month and a bit, but I'm excited to see what I can do once I'm back on that court, because of, the shape and the, where I am at the moment. So it's pretty exciting, but, you don't think of that when you've just, felt your knee give way on itself.
Yeah, and that's, it's super cool to see, like, you've been at least outwardly really positive the whole way through this. Like, we've had a lot of conversations about the building yourself back up, and like the way that you've approached it's been really, really cool. Like I've watched it, like how detail orientated you are, is like making sure you're doing everything, like the movements as best as you can, and like performing, like you've been very, very diligent in the process. Has there been, like, tell us about what were some of the dark days with it?
Yeah.
Because I think this is something that a lot of people experience with injuries like this, is it's not always that outwardly positive, but then we can go into social media, like, and the way that people approach it, but like a lot of that's like, oh yeah, look at me, I've progressed to this now, I'm going to be back in no time. And what's that like being on the other side of that? Do you mind sharing a little bit?
Yeah, that's all right.
Keep going.
My first initial thought was my career's over. At the time I was 19. At 19 my career's over and I'm never going to play basketball again. And now that I look back on that, it's like silly to even think that. But that's just the thoughts you have. And then I don't think I actually got out of bed for a long time, and I used the excuse, I can't walk on my leg. And it was about a week and a half before I actually got surgery. So I had a week and a half where I, just sulked in bed. I didn't want to get out of bed. And I actually didn't find out that I did my knee, that it was the ACL, until 3 days later, because I couldn't get the MRI. I was a bit too swollen in the knee. And my first initial thing I did was, it was about 7 o'clock at night, and my team had training at around that time, and I was like, and I found out I was hysterical, at home, and I was like, I just can't be here. I was like, I need to, get out. So I got in my car and went to training and had to sit there. And I think that was the best thing for me, was not shying away from what I've done. I was at training and at every game that I could get to. And I think that, like, even though I was sitting on the sideline and watching I still felt like I was involved. Like now the WNBL's playing, like I'm missing the season. But I think I've watched every game live streamed because I feel like I'm there on the court playing, and I think that's really helped me. But after the surgery, not even being able to walk and, you know, being on painkillers as well, you just don't feel yourself. And when you've gone through, you know, 16 years of just playing basketball, like I was thinking I don't have much else going for me at this moment. Was doing uni, so I was like, at least I can get a degree. But at that point I was like, I can't do anything else. I have no other talents. You know, sport is the only thing that I have. And so the thought of losing that, it was, you know, devastating. And, you know, I was just like, well, there's no point of, you know, for that first couple of weeks, there's no point. Like, why would I get up and try to rehab my knee when it's just pointless? And then I kind of got in the thought, okay, I'll give myself 2 days a week where I can just cry, just 2 days. And then it got to the point where I was like, oh, I kind of forget about it now. You know, just get on with doing the rehab, what the doctors and physios are telling me. And then, you know, I was back in the gym, I think after a month. It obviously wasn't too strenuous what I was doing on the knees, but it was nice just to kind of get out and do something. So if I had like advice for anyone that's going through the same thing, I would just say don't shy away from doing what you're used to. Yeah, I couldn't get back on the court, you know, a month after surgery, but, you know, I could be there supporting the team. I could, you know, find some way to be able to shoot. Like I could sit in a chair and shoot at the hoop, or sit in a chair and, you know, work on my handles. And I think that's what the best thing was for me to, you know, I work at the stadium full time. I was around basketball all the time. Like, there's no way of escaping it. So I think I just kind of took it by the hands and just ran with it. And because I was like, may as well do it, because, you know, that slight chance of getting back to where I was before. And I think a few months into the rehab, I was like, yeah, this is going to be really cool when I can get back on the court. You know, lifting more in the gym, I could, you know, test out my athleticism on the court. And I think I say like I'm in better shape than I was pre-ACL. So, you know, I'm not saying go out and do ACL. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, if this does happen to you, like, it's not the end of the world. And it's hard to see that at the start, because you're so clouded by, you know, the devastation of, like, pretty much your whole world being taken away from you. But you just got to keep going with it, and the benefits will come.
It sounds like what you did in that turnaround point is you took the obstacle of the injury and turned it into an opportunity to get better at things that you might not have had the chance to spend as much time on. Like, I've made mention to you a billion times of like how impressed, like, with your, like, how much bigger your hamstrings have gotten from the extra work that you've done in the gym, and I think like probably 100,000 band hamstring curls that you've been doing along your physio program in that time. I
think we worked it out the other day. I've done more than 6,000 hamstring curls on each leg.
Yeah, wow.
Which is, because in the surgery, obviously, I use my hamstring as a graft. So it's not just the knee that we're rehabbing, it's the hamstring, it's, you know, the rest of the body. So yeah, I think I'll be glad once I get past it to never do a hamstring curl ever again. Yeah. But I guess, like, rehab doesn't just stop there. It's, you know, a thing I got to make sure I maintain in the future. And I'm sure when I'm, you know, 40 years old, I'll be feeling it quite a fair bit in the knees.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like, Duncan, one of the physios that's been on the podcast before, like, kind of has talked to us, I don't know whether it was on the episode or off air, but like this range between rehab and performance, like, that's kind of like separated in a lot of ways. It's like you kind of have your physio that does your rehab and your strength conditioning coach that worries about your performance side of stuff, but they kind of interlink a lot more and than what people give it credit for. Is like part of your rehab is going to be part of your performance, and then part of your performance stuff is also in some ways going to be like crossing over into that rehab side, depending on where you are and that side of stuff. And I think that's where it's really important to have your network or your support team be very open and like working in together. Like I remember is it Andrew?
Yeah.
Andrew, your physio, he came in one day and had a chat with Nathan. I think they were talking for probably an hour and a half or so of just like, okay, this is what we're doing, here's how we can facilitate it together, and then continuing to keep in the loop between yourself and Andrew and Nathan, and those sort of things I think have been really, really integral in having that smooth path within that rehab back to performance stage.
Yeah, I don't think I would have gotten this far into the rehab if it wasn't for, you know, the good communication between you guys and my physio. And I think, you know, they always say, my surgeon, yeah, he did a really good surgery, but, you know, he was like, yeah, you can go back and play at 6 months. And I was like, well, there's no chance. And he really spoke about how, you know, people can play at 6 months or 9 months if they do their rehab right. And, you know, at 6 months I was feeling like I was great, I can get out and play, but I know what was best for me at that time was, we've got to take this slow and do it properly the first time so I never have to do an ACL rehab ever again. But I think that's what we've got right, is that communication between everyone involved, you know, myself, the physios, you guys here, my parents. And, you know, I owe a lot to Andrew and you guys here to where I am now, and, you know, I'm really appreciative of it. And it's going to be really hard to leave to go down to Bendigo because I know I've got these great PTs back here. That's, you know, like the knee injury wasn't even the first injury that you guys have rehabbed me through. Last year I broke my ankle, so...
That's right.
Yeah, so I've had a pretty unfortunate run of injuries, but, you know, even now, between 2 years of just being injury, like plagued with injuries, to come out at the level I am at, hopefully, it's really a credit to you guys. So.
Thank you, Cass. That means a lot. And I've only really been the guy that just comes down and has a chat and sees how you are. Nate's done all the work with that one there, so we'll give him all the credit for that. Cool. Let's touch quickly on a last few things. Let's talk about like the state of like basketball and maybe just team sports in general. But obviously, like I've had a lot of chats with your dad, and your dad's very, very in the swing of things of understanding where basketball's at. He's a strong believer in that we should probably be getting our basketballers to be doing a little bit more gym work or strength work and getting them to be better all-round athletes. Like you've kind of gone through this process now, and you probably have seen a lot of people on both sides of it because you've had such a wide variety of playing in so many teams. What are some things that you think that general like young basketballers could possibly be doing better to improve their performance or anything like that?
Yeah, I feel like as I've kind of gone through the program and looking back at, or like the process of playing juniors, seniors, professional now, that I've seen the change where athletes are doing more on the court or in their sport, that they're not accompanying it with the adequate strength and conditioning. So if you look at like the senior women's program of my team that we had just played with or I'd watched play, I was the first of 5 to tear their ACLs that year.
Wow.
So there was 4 other girls in the senior women's program that went and tore their ACLs in that year. And I think because we're doing so much more and putting our bodies through so much more, you know, strenuous things on the court, and, you know, we're doing longer and harder sessions, that we're not supplementing it with the right, you know, off-court training in the gym. You know, I did my knee because a lot of it was, you know, maybe I didn't have the right, you know, hip strength and stuff like that. And I have done gym, obviously, with you guys for the last year and a half, but, you know, that's something on me where maybe I didn't do it early enough in my career. And so these young kids that are doing, you know, 10 times more than what I was doing at 13, 14-year-olds, they need to be thinking, okay, if I want to have a long, healthy career, I need to start now to be able to, you know, give my body the best opportunity to have a clean run of injuries. And I think, like, this injury on my knee was because I, you know, at 13, 14 years old, when I was, you know, training every day, maybe having one day off, or I was sometimes doing 2 sessions a day. And this was before I kind of even knew what strength and conditioning was. It wasn't really much of a muchness back 6-7 years ago. And so now I would just say, like, you need to get your body right. Like, you need to do the gym work, you need to do the recovery, and, you know, not just recovery after games, but also, you know, an adequate warm-up. And I think that's what I wasn't good at. You know, prior to games, I just wanted to get on the court and play. Like, why have a 30-minute warm-up? Just get on the court and play. And I think it's come to bite me in the butt a little bit now, but, you know, I still have a really young career and, you know, hopefully a really long career of it as well. But that's one thing I would say to any sports person starting out and having aspirations to go play professionally or even further on, that you need to take care of your body. So
yeah, and the thing that I think that's really tough in basketball as well is it is a year-round sport, even though like the competitions themselves may only run for 6 months, but your injury, as you said, was coming straight back from a season with Bendigo where you were very full on the whole way through, like 6 months of hard competition, travel, training, all of these things add up, and then straight back into playing for the Hunters, and then you've got the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, how many years in a row have you been doing year-round basketball at a high level and training all the time? That I think there's a huge accumulation effect there, and that's where that need for that prehab or rehab along that process, I think, comes more and more important.
Yeah.
So, Cass, I want to wrap up there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I think you've left a lot of key insights for people who either young sportsmen, sportswomen, wanting to do the best out of their performance, or like if they're maybe going through an injury right now, and giving them some of that key insight of turning those obstacles into opportunities for them. And I think that's going to be really, really valuable for those guys. So thank you for sharing.
No, thank you for having me.
And I want to wish you the best of luck with, obviously it's not long now until we head back down to Bendigo, and the whole team here at New Strength and the Tribe, we're going to be watching and keeping our eyes out. So we're looking forward to seeing you back on the court and getting to unfortunately cheer Bendigo instead of Newcastle, but we'll go with it for now.
Yeah, well, hopefully Newcastle can eventually get that WNBL team, and then you know,
could be the first marquee signing.
That would be the dream.
Yeah. Awesome, I love it. Cass, where can people find you if they want to follow your journey back into this, into the WNBL and back into basketball? Where's the best place for people to check you out?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram. So if you want to, like, my Instagram handle's just Cassidy_McLean. Hopefully it's not too hard to get that spelling right.
It's all good.
But yeah, I pretty much document all my journey on there. I don't use Facebook too much, and if I do, it's just for family. But yeah, Instagram, you see a lot of me, and I like to show a lot of what we do down there as well, because my family found it pretty eye-opening to, you know, the life of a professional athlete. It's so different to anything else, and yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. Guys, we'll see you next week on the New Strength Way.